it shows what these people are capable of and what they'll be capable of once Biden is fully empowered after tomorrow.
I totally agree. You know, they're calling it the Hunger Games scenario, but an empty inauguration, except for tens of thousands of troops, it looks like a celebration of Xi Jinping's birthday or something.
Yeah, it's like North Korea. Well, and isn't that funny? I think it was during one of Trump's, maybe it was Trump's inauguration or maybe one of his other speeches. I know that he wanted to have a parade with missiles and tanks and things like that. And I remember that the media said that just goes to show that Trump is a wannabe dictator and he admires people like Kim Jong-un and so on. And then it's going to be the Biden inauguration that you have, like you said, 30,000 National Guard, 40,000 police, walls, military checkpoints, all the bridges into the city closed. It's kind of amazing how quickly we got to this point. But, you know, I said on my show last night, it's actually a very apropos and fitting inauguration because at least now we've sort of done away with this facade that Biden has a popular mandate. Because the rhetoric just a few weeks ago was this is the most popular president ever, right? 80 million votes, and he's the largest vote getter in history. There was no fraud and so on. And now we're going to have this inauguration with no citizens, enforced by the military. They have to build up walls literally to keep the American people from coming in and toppling the whole system. So it's actually apropos. And I think it's good because I think this is going to set the tone for the next 4 years that this is an illegitimate White House. It's an illegitimate occupant in the White House, and it shows. That's why they have to build a giant fence. It's totally overkill. It's totally excessive, but they need it to deter patriots, Trump supporters, anything like that to do massive demonstrations or, you know, who knows what else during their inauguration. So I actually look at this very visible, severe crackdown, this big display. Maybe people look at this and finally wake up. We're not in control of the system anymore. This is not the sacred democracy that we hear about all the time. It's actually totalitarianism.
That's right, Nick. I want to go back to something you said at the start of this segment. You had them hyperventilating, saying Trump shouldn't put National Guard in Kenosha or all these other places that were burning to the ground, hundreds of businesses per town being destroyed, people being shot in the head, Antifa, BLM checkpoints, total bedlam, billions of dollars of damage. And then meanwhile, they burned down the church next to the White House. Trump does a photo op and has General Milley along with the rest of the cabinet with him. And they call it total fascism, that he's seen with the military and that he's a dictator. And then Milley apologizes. But now that it's the Democrats and the Chi-Com agent, well, you know, here is the 30,000 and 40,000 wine. My goodness, folks, that's a lot of paramilitary. This is crazy.
Well, yeah, I remember that too. That was after the riots in D.C. And I remember he had the Secret Service and the police sort of occupy the foreground in front of the White House. And they said, this is what a coward looks like. This is a man who's afraid of the people, like you said. And he came out and held up the Bible. And that was fascism. That was, you know, this is very symbolic display of how it's the people with Black Lives Matter against the oppressing police. And it's obviously nothing in comparison to what Biden requires just to get inaugurated. And the comparison is even broader than that. It's the entire Black Lives Matter situation and Antifa situation that's been going on for the past 6 months. And frankly, you know, to me, the lesson is not so much about the double standard, because we know this, we expect this. It's been like this for a long time. But, you know, when there's this Capitol siege, and they're so exaggerating what happened at the Capitol. I mean, really what you had is some gullible boomers and some QAnon people were wandering around the Capitol looking like tourists. I mean, this was not an insurrection. This was rowdiness. This was civil disobedience. But the left has taken this opportunity, and they've got now the DOJ and the FBI working around the clock 24/7 to use geo-tracking, surveillance, facial recognition to track down and charge everybody even peripherally associated.
And like the Stasi, if you go on Twitter, it's just millions of people all compiling. Oh, here's Jones and Fuentes the night before inciting, arrest them. Oh, here's Trump giving a speech, arrest him. And then they're all breathlessly, oh, these are insurrectionists. I'm so frightened. I want them arrested now. Meanwhile, almost everybody that got in the Capitol was in between the velvet ropes. This is insane. I'm going to ask Nick Fuentes how we fight back peacefully on the other side. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. tomorrow's news today. We're going to have live coverage starting 8 a.m. tomorrow, and it's going to be commercial free once the installation of Lord Biden happens. We're going to be on air covering it. This is from the D.C. police, directly to me. A National Guard truck has been stolen last night. Reports of FBI investigation of organizations trying to infiltrate as guardsmen currently. This is already in the news. This part is not exclusive. 2 National Guardsmen were removed from their duties today for being on a heightened watch list. An ATF tactical fast team has just set up on top of X building. So that's the type of stuff that's going on. We've got reporters on the ground there. We have a live feed of the Capitol at Infowars.com and Newswars.com. Nick J. Fuentes of NickJFuentes.com is here. You can find his nightly TV program. It's very popular as well by going to his website. Nick, here's the deal. I try not to fight with the different activist groups. And I like overall what the Groypers are doing. And I like your point about the Republican Party being one of our biggest enemies and trying to totally take that party over, not just partially. We'll speak to some solutions in a moment, or a new national party you've talked about if one of these parties has to go. But the Boogaloos, I mean, they say they work with BLM because they're for everybody's freedom, but they're actually connected to Soros, we know. They come out of nowhere. They bragged that they broke into the Capitol. They bragged they led it. Zero Hedge is a 20-page article showing all their quotes from their top people. And then none of them get in trouble. Now, I've not called the FBI on them, okay? And I understand we have a tyrannical government, and we're probably going to come to the point sometime that things get worse and worse. It might be time to have to go offensive, but I want to exhaust all the other remedies first, and I'm certainly not going to attack with a bunch of people at the Capitol with a guy dressed up in a shaman outfit. I'm trying to attack their ideas and turn things around that way. But then the Boogaloos are calling us up going, hey, why are you being mean to the Boogaloos? Well, I mean, my God, you're saying you're part of all this. You've got Antifa dressed up like patriots. You guys broke in. You let a few people in with you. Now the country's under martial law, basically. Can't you see who you serve? Most of the Boogaloos aren't feds. But if you look at the FBI infiltrating the militias in the 90s and things, this has all the telltale signs of this. And the people involved in this, just like the Q followers, need to know what's happened to them. So speak to that, your view on that, and what's going to happen tomorrow when Joe Biden gets sworn in and the Q people literally in the streets and on my website, I see them. They're mad at me going, Jones, you've joined the bad guys. Trump is going to be the president. No, he's not. I've talked to 2 lawyers very close to the president in the last 48 hours. And I've talked to somebody else very close to the president. I'm going to leave it at that. Trump's leaving. He's upset. He's going to fight back against the globalists. He's not going to give up, but he's not going to be president anymore, folks. Okay, we actually talked to the president, unlike the made-up Q crap. And sorry, I'm ranting. We've got you here as a guest. Give me your take on all that.
Well, you're totally right about the Q people, and I agree it is frustrating. It's just delusion at this point. It's January 19th. The inauguration is tomorrow, and we've seen that the Stop the Steal efforts, as valiant and noble as they were, fell through, and they fell through because the Republican Party's totally corrupt. The Republican state legislators didn't want to claw back their power to appoint electors. The Supreme Court didn't want to intervene, not even the 3 justices that the president appointed in the past 4 years. And ultimately, Vice President Mike Pence and Republican senators didn't want to object to fraudulent electors. We exhausted all of our constitutional options, and that's it. And I've heard some of these crazy rumors and crazy ideas about what could possibly happen tomorrow. At a certain point, you just have to accept the fact that the Trump administration, as much as I love Trump, as much as I love the man, and as much as I think that he's a great man and a true believer, the Trump administration for the past 4 years was full of people sabotaging him, subverting him, and a lot of people that were just grossly incompetent. You know, even you take a look at the Stop the Steal effort, and not the Ali Alexander rallies, but the resistance against the voter fraud from the legal team. You had Sidney Powell talking about release the Kraken, and Lin Wood, who just totally went unhinged in the past couple of weeks. This was at no point, in my opinion, a very serious or viable effort to overturn the results of the election. And that's unfortunate, and it hurts me to say that because I love President Trump and I wanted him to be in office for 4 more years. And I know that you and I did everything we could. We went to rallies and we went to state capitals and so on. But they're just living in this reality where Donald Trump is the Messiah and there's all this JFK stuff and whatever. And it's just not going to happen. And at the very least, tomorrow, when Biden is inaugurated, hopefully that will be put to bed. I don't know what the mental gymnastics will be tomorrow when that happens, what the next part of the plan is, what the new thing to watch out for will be, the next crumbs drop by Q on 8chan or whatever. But hopefully that'll finally put that to bed. The good thing about QAnon, I always thought, was that it got a lot of regular people to believe the right things, even if they were believing them for the wrong reasons. It took a lot of maybe mainstream conservative Republican types who believe this usual stuff about small government and free trade and mass immigration and low taxes. And I think it woke them up about the power of the elites and the evil and the corruption of the elites and kind of this international thing that's going on with foreign
Nick,
governments.
they took all the work that I did and countless others did, and you've been around a while, and it became Q. They're like, oh, Q knows about this. And then, but don't worry, everything's fine. But I mean, I agree. It was kind of a pop way for the general public. It was just now waking up to get into it. But because it was so simple and you're part of a secret club, it was very, very beguiling, very seductive.
Right. Well, yeah, that's a big component of it, totally. And, there was this aspect of people had to track it down and decode it, and they formed these little communities. And it was interesting. It was also, I think, it was sort of an escape because Trump represented so much hope in 2016, and very quickly after his inauguration in 2017, you could see that the establishment got their hooks in his administration. You could see that Reince Priebus filled up the White House with all these terrible people. The policies that we elected Trump to accomplish or to pass were put on a back burner, and instead they focused on Obamacare and corporate tax cut and so on.
I totally agree. So let me ask you, what happens tomorrow when Biden gets sworn in and Trump flies off to Mar-a-Lago? What are the Q people going to do then?
I don't know. I guess they'll have to come up with some new fiction, maybe in 2024. That's when the American corporation will be dissolved and the republic will come back. I don't know. I don't follow it very closely.
Yeah,
but,
Biden had to be put in to complete the fraud with the contract with the Merovingians. Yeah.
That's right. It's all part of the five-dimensional chess. And, we're making fun of it. But unfortunately, there are a lot of nice, earnest people who fall into this stuff because they're naive, I think, a little bit, and maybe inexperienced. And basically, they're taken for a ride. I think they're basically taken advantage of by people who are knowingly deceiving them, and they're getting caught up in this stuff. So tomorrow, what I hope is that well-meaning Trump supporters, well-meaning nationalists, people that might have fallen into this stuff, I hope they take the good stuff out of it, which is that, yes, the world is run by evil, satanic elites, pedophiles. This international stuff is totally true. Foreign collusion, like that's all true. And I hope that people will take that with them, but maybe they let this fantasy about a deep state operative working on our side in the government, like Robert Mueller's on our side. I hope they let that kind of stuff go, because I think there is a lot of useful stuff in the QAnon narrative, which help people understand what's really going on in the world. So hopefully tomorrow, a lot of these people who are, they're good, they're patriots, well-meaning people, and so on, I hope they'll wake up about the delusional aspect of it, and then they'll be ready to join us in reality to continue the uphill, very difficult battle against a deep state that will take place under a Biden administration. And I don't like to admit that, but that's the way it's going to be. So it'll be a big reality check.